From BBC Learning English, this is Learning English from the News, our podcast about the news headlines.
In this programme, tens of thousands of migrants swam around the border into Ceuta, part of Spain. But what caused the crisis?
Hello, I'm Pippa.
And I'm Georgie.
In this programme, we look at one big news story and the vocabulary in the headlines that will help you understand it.
You can find all the vocabulary and headlines from this episode, as well as a worksheet on our website, bbclearningenglish.com.
So, let's hear more about this story.
About 60,000 migrants managed to break through the border between Morocco and the Spanish territory of Ceuta last week.
Many of the migrants swam around the border fence, leading to chaos in Ceuta, which only has a population of around 80,000 people. At least 72 migrants died attempting to make the journey.
Spanish authorities say the majority of migrants have now been returned to Morocco.
It's thought viral social media posts declaring Spain is open encouraged so many people to try to get to Ceuta.
Let's have our first headline. This one is from AP News, an international news agency. Runaway online rumours sparked frantic rush by migrants to the Spanish territory of Ceuta.
That headline again from AP News. Runaway online rumours sparked frantic rush by migrants to the Spanish territory of Ceuta.
This headline says that online rumours, spelt using the American English spelling here, sparked migrants to travel to Ceuta. In other words, it encouraged them to suddenly take action.
We're interested in the description of the rumours as runaway. You're probably familiar with the phrasal verb run away, which means to leave somewhere suddenly. But here we have the adjective runaway, which is one word.
Yes, in this context, runaway means out of control. For example, literally, a runaway train is a train that is travelling fast and out of control.
In the headline, runaway is metaphorical. The rumours about Ceuta spread quickly and were out of control, leading to lots of people attempting to travel there. They were runaway rumours.
We don't always have to use runaway in negative situations. We can also use it to talk about success. A runaway success is a success beyond expectations.
Yes, for example, the director was pleased his film was a runaway hit with audiences.
We've had runaway, out of control, or beyond expectations.
For example, the marketing campaign for the cereal was a runaway success. So many people bought it.
This is Learning English from the News, our podcast about the news headlines. Today we're talking about the migrant crisis in Ceuta and what caused it.
The images of tens of thousands of migrants climbing up the rocks to Ceuta quickly spread around the world on social media and on news sites.
And the crisis led to disagreement between Spain and other countries in the EU.
For example, Italy's Prime Minister announced the country would suspend the Schengen Agreement with Spain, which allows for the free movement of people between many mainland countries in the EU.
Many EU leaders also called for an urgent meeting, asking for the end of policies they believe could be pull factors to Europe. This means policies that could encourage illegal migration.
But Spain says the problems in Ceuta are not caused by its immigration policies, and that Ceuta is not part of mainland Spain, so there was never a security threat to other EU countries.
Let's have another headline. This one is from BBC News. How Spain's migrant crisis created a political storm, whipped up by social media.
That headline again from BBC News. How Spain's migrant crisis created a political storm, whipped up by social media.
So this headline says the crisis in Ceuta created a political storm. Storm in this context means a situation where there is lots of argument and disagreement.
And the storm was whipped up by social media. What does this mean, Georgie?
Well, whipped up by means caused or made stronger by.
So, in this story, the political storm, the arguments between Spain and other EU countries, were caused or made stronger by social media, according to the headline. They were whipped up by social media.
Yes, remember, videos of thousands of migrants arriving in Ceuta spread quickly, and politicians shared and commented on them on social media.
We can use whipped up to talk about arguments and controversy, but also excitement. For example, the excitement of a crowd could be whipped up by a singer at a concert.
We can also use whip up slightly differently to mean create something quickly and seemingly with very little effort. For example, in cooking, I didn't have much left in my fridge, but I managed to whip up some dinner from a few ingredients.
We've had whipped up, caused or made stronger.
For example, the footballer whipped up anger in the crowds by celebrating in front of the losing team.
This is Learning English from the News from BBC Learning English. We're talking about the migrant crisis in Ceuta.
As we've heard, tens of thousands of migrants crossed the border into Ceuta from Morocco, and it's thought many were encouraged by viral social media posts. At least 72 people died trying to swim around the fences.
The small Spanish territory was unprepared for so many people entering at once. Many migrants turned around and went back to Morocco.
Spain says most migrants have now been returned, and it is working to extend the border fence into the sea to stop people attempting the swim in the future.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called for EU countries to work together to strengthen borders and tackle people smuggling gangs.
Let's have another headline. This one is from Politico, a politics news site. EU ministers to back Spain as Ceuta crisis pushes migration up the agenda.
That headline again from Politico. EU ministers to back Spain as Ceuta crisis pushes migration up the agenda.
So this headline is about the impact of the crisis on Spain and the EU. It says the crisis has pushed migration up the agenda. Pippa, can you explain this?
Well, an agenda is what we call the list of things to discuss in a meeting, but we can also use agenda more generally to talk about the list of things that need to be discussed or debated.
Right. We would expect the most important issues to be at the top of the agenda, to be discussed first. And so if something is pushed up the agenda, it's become more important and needs to be discussed more urgently.
Okay, in this story, the situation in Ceuta has meant many more EU politicians want to talk about migration. The crisis has pushed migration up the agenda.
We've had push something up the agenda, bring forward discussion of something because of its importance.
For example, campaigners say the recent heatwaves in the UK are pushing climate change up the agenda. More people want to talk about it.
That's it for this episode of Learning English from the News. We'll be back next week with another new story.
Don't forget to try the worksheet on our website to test the vocabulary from this episode. There's a link in the notes below this programme.
Bye for now.
Goodbye.